Start by thanking Joe Hawkins from the Parent and Family Programs Office in the Division of Student Life for setting up this webcast. Joe is with us behind the scenes. He'll be reviewing your questions and passing them to us to address after our brief presentation. So please just use the chat function or the Q&A function on your browser to submit questions. Do I have that right, Brian?
That sounds right.
All right. Brian's going to start us off we've got lots to cover, starting with room assignments and changes, online resources. We've got all sorts of details for move-in day, and Brian is going to begin.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today, everybody. As you know by now, new students have been sent an email notifying them that room assignments are finalized. In that email, they were prompted to log in to their online housing account, where they can conduct much of their business related to living on campus. This website will show students the room assignment information, the mailing address for their hall, the dimensions of the room, square footage, as well as roommate information. The email that they received also had important information about their assigned move-in day, their move-in time. And so that's definitely an important, and their living learning community as well. It was part of that. So definitely an important communication, and that website, the online housing account, is going to be an important resource for them as well. Want to touch quickly on the topic of COVID precautions. We do continue to evaluate our COVID safety precautions, working closely with Butler County General Health District. We have adapted them each term, each semester as the conditions change. At the time of this webinar today, on July 28th, Butler County is listed at a high community risk level for COVID on the CDC website. While we are not requiring masks on campus, we encourage you to stay aware of the risk level and to follow CDC recommendations. Under a high risk level, their recommendations include masking indoors, but it is not mandated on campus. You can find more information on our main COVID webpage about that. We'll also be offering a webinar on August 5th that will outline much more information about the fall plans. So that'll be a good opportunity if you're interested in understanding that more and hearing those plans. Registration information for that webinar can also be found on the university's COVID webpage. I want to touch a little bit about meal plans. Students can use their housing portal, that same website, to make changes to their meal plan if they would like to. We did send one email already to students reminding them of which meal plan they'd signed up for and what it would provide them. Our office, the Campus Services Center, will be sending another reminder as well, likely within the next week or two, with one more reminder about here's the plan you've got. Those changes can be made on that housing portal through their housing application. You can change the meal plan up until the first day of each semester. So you can change the fall plan up until Monday, August 22nd, and the spring plan could still be changed yet again up until the first day of spring. So sometimes we find students that will have one particular plan for fall, discover new patterns, kind of get used to being here, realize, you know what, that's not quite the right plan for me. I want a different one for spring. We do allow that change, and students can do all that on their own, on their account. Room changes. At this point, room assignments have been finalized. There may be a few tweaks made under certain circumstances, such as ADA compliance and such. But if a student for any reason wants to make a change to the room assignment, they do need to wait until the second week of school, at which point they would be able to speak with the resident director to request a room change for any reason. Early arrival is an important topic as well. We want to make sure to answer questions about that. There are a few things we suggest students do prior to arriving on campus. The first thing is to communicate with their roommate. Even if their roommate is someone who they know, they should still communicate about what items they need to bring so they don't duplicate items. They can also begin the process of building a respectful relationship and regular communication. And I will touch also then on that if, in addition to those pre-arrival tasks and kind of getting to know your roommate, If your student does need to move in early prior to their assigned move-in day or time, they can simply submit an early arrival request using their online account. Again, that same website, they'll see a link at the top that's called Break and Early Arrival Housing, and they can submit a request. I want to point out that if your student just needs to arrive at a different time on their same assigned day, so if they were assigned on Thursday, August 18th, and they were assigned 9 to 11, but they need to arrive between 1 and 3, for example, no need to submit any requests or anything about that. That's fine. If it's within the same day, you can just come at a different time. We do encourage those times, but that is not something they need to request. If they need to come a different day, though, please do that. And I think Rob's probably going to touch more on that. I might have jumped ahead a little bit, get excited about some of those things. So I will want to skip here to things to bring. We know that students will start packing soon. There's 2 websites that I want to draw your attention to. The first is the housing website, where you will find links for frequently asked questions. And this page also answers the questions of what should I bring to campus, as well as what should I not bring. The second helpful website is through the Office of Residence Life, which contains regulations for on-campus living. This is a list of prohibited items in the residence hall, which is also very important. We get lots of questions about those, so be sure to check out those. Of particular note is the complete prohibition of candles, incense, candle warmers on campus. Even the wickless candles and wax warmers are not permitted. They're prohibited. We want students to avoid the potential $500 fine that's issued by the Oxford Fire Department for anyone who possesses a candle on campus or who tampers with their fire safety equipment. So those are very serious things. And so please keep those things in mind. All right, Rob, I think it's back to you here.
Yes, and before we move on, we've got one question posted already. The question is, do Miami-bound students need to change their arrival date? There are a number. Miami-bound is one of our several pre-semester programs, and there are a number of students who are arriving early. Students who are in ROTC, students in the marching band, students who have employment on campus and have already arranged to be arriving early so they can get their training, and our pre-semester programs. All of the students who are in those programs and have those needs to arrive early should just confirm with the organization they're working with that they've done the request, and most of them have done the request so that we know they're arriving early. In those cases, those students do not need to submit the change of arrival date. It's already been done by the program that they're associated with. You would only need to do it if there was some individual reason that you and that the student and the family needed to arrive on some other day than their assigned move-in day.
And I would just add real quickly to that, new this year actually, is as those group requests that Rob noted, as those come in and we process those, if your student is part of that, they can actually see that approval on their housing account. So they would still log in to that housing account, click the Break Housing tab, and then within that at the bottom, there's a link to view a summary of your requests, and you'll actually see that listed there as an approved request on your behalf. So you'll be able to see it there.
All right, let's talk about move-in day now. Most new students are assigned to arrive on campus on Thursday, August 18th. The exception would be students in Havikhurst, Emerson, and Hahn Halls who can arrive on Wednesday, August 17th. We do this simply to alleviate some of the traffic in the quads. Now, as Brian stated earlier, students' arrival time was noted in their email from the Campus Services Center, and students are also assigned to an arrival time on their move-in day so we can spread out move-in over the course of the day. There's no benefit to moving in early in the day. In fact, we find that there's sometimes more traffic early in the morning, and in the 11 a.m. time or the 1 p.m. time, or even after that, you drive straight up to your hall, you unload and you pull out, and there's no lines. So try your best to conform to the assignment that that was sent in your letter. And the other thing I wanted to mention about Havikhurst, Emerson, and Hahn halls is that if you've already made arrangements to arrive on the 18th, that's fine. Those students are not going to miss anything significant by arriving on the 18th. There will be like some activities for the students on the 17th, just so we have, something for those students to do. But their corridor meeting and their all hall meeting are going to take place on Thursday, the 18th, just like everybody else. So if you've pre-made arrangements, don't worry, you can still arrive on the 18th. Upper class students move in on Saturday and Sunday, and welcome weekend activities begin as soon as students arrive on campus. Classes begin on August 22nd, when we commence with the first 50 days of programming, including Mega Fair, which you see on the calendar there for that first Sunday of the semester. Mega Fair is our student involvement event, which occurs and involves hundreds of student organizations, and thousands of students will attend. All right, so the plan for when you arrive is for you to get as close to your residence hall as possible, so you can unload your vehicle. There'll be signs, and there'll be staff from physical facilities station pointing you in the right direction. And you'll have a couple options. The main option is to just follow the path of all the cars going to that building, because when you get to the front of that building, we may have volunteers there to help unload your car, and then you stay with your car and you pull right out. In other cases, some people pull up at another spot around the building and unload there and then go in and check in. But I just implore you to not stay parked in that spot all day. No one should be parking close to the residence halls during move-in day. Everyone should immediately move their vehicle to parking away from the residence hall so others can pull in and unload. Do not leave your vehicle unattended around the residence halls. There's free parking close to every residential quad in either a large surface lot or in one of the garages. And the staff that are present on move-in day will be able to direct you to where you need to go for parking. We've got a few COVID precautions during move-in. We'll provide hand sanitizer and cleaning supplies for the carts. Physical facilities staff will be wiping down doorknobs and elevator buttons periodically. Again, our practices will follow CDC recommendations and any directives we get from the Butler County General Health District. I mentioned you might be getting assistance during move-in. On move-in day, there may be volunteer upper class students and physical facilities department staff available to help you move your belongings in. Now, we can't guarantee that everyone's going to receive assistance, but there will be hundreds of students and staff helping across campus just to make the day go smoother at our peak times. After your vehicle is unloaded, you must move it, as I mentioned, to remote parking. In almost all cases, there's free parking in designated areas or garages, a short walk from the residence halls. Do not park in a blue disabled parking space unless your vehicle is approved to do so. Again, do not park adjacent to the residence halls. Vehicles are not permitted to block any dumpster near the residence halls while you're unloading, because the dumpsters need to be emptied several times a day. And you can also help with recycling by not putting empty boxes in the dumpsters, rather collapse empty cardboard boxes and neatly pile them behind the dumpster, and they'll be picked up by our campus recycling operation. A little bit about dining here. Most of the dining halls will be open when you arrive on campus, and students may use their meal plan. Family members can pay with a credit card. So we are a cashless campus. So again, students can start using their meal plan, and parents and families can go and eat in the dining halls using a credit card. Many parents wonder about the schedule on move-in day and when they should plan to leave. Students should be ready to join their corridor for dinner on move-in day, typically around 5 p.m. It's an early dinner because we've got a packed evening of meetings and then activities. So, and mandatory meetings start at 6:30 p.m. which are include a small corridor meeting with their RAs and an all-hall meeting with their resident director. And then from there, they immediately go to campus social-wide events that evening for all students. So you should, help them get moved in, see if they need anything. If you're here before lunch, go grab some lunch, but otherwise you can head out whenever you're all set in the room. To help avoid unnecessary damage charges at the end of the year, we ask that you please follow these policies when setting up the room. The use of Scotch tape, masking tape, duct tape, or any product with a self-adhering strips is prohibited because they damage the walls. Even products that advertise they are damage-free have caused damage and are therefore not permitted. One of the dynamics we're up against is that every store in town and every website and everywhere you talk about, they're like, oh, use these command strips, they're awesome. And they may be good, but they also cause damage. And then the students will get charged at the end of the year. The new cool thing these days are LED lighting strips. These often cause a lot of damage to the paint in student rooms, so should not be adhered to the wall. There's a picture of them, and it's on the slide here, and they're really cool, and they really make the room fun, and they're pretty inexpensive, but you got to make sure you add $220 to repaint the room to the cost of those LED lights, because that's what it's going to cost when the student pulls them off and the paint and drywall gets pulled off afterwards. Putty is permitted, but if it causes damage to the walls, students will be held responsible. So we want you to avoid being charged the fees associated with repairing the damage. Please hang things on the wall using S-hooks. You see a picture of the S-hooks here, and they go on the rails on the walls. Okay, we want to encourage you to visit the webpage displayed here, which includes answers to frequently asked questions about move-in day, and we'll soon have maps that show the traffic flow for your specific residence hall. You can feel free to print that map for your hall and bring it on move-in day, and this site will also have any updated procedures for move-in as we get closer to hall opening. The last thing we have for you, and then we'll go and address some of these questions, are some tips for successful living and an easy move-in day on campus. The first tip is to employ patience. We have years of experience with move-in day, but as you know, when thousands of students and families are arriving on the same day, we'll encounter some bumps along the way. So we've got a lot of staff and desire to get everything worked out, and we appreciate your patience. Flexibility and an open mind. Students should arrive ready to experience new situations and new people. This doesn't mean that they'll need to be bubbly and outgoing if that's not their normal personality, but just be flexible and open to their new life on campus. It may take some longer than others to feel perfectly comfortable, and you should know our staff is here to help if any students struggle to get connected. And finally, students should be ready to learn. As we discussed during orientation this summer, we do not see the residence halls as a haven from learning, rather another context in which students' learning occurs. They'll learn about themselves, they'll learn about others, and those who do not know already will learn how to do their laundry. So there's all sorts of learning that they'll experience in the residence halls, and we want them to show up ready to learn. Finally, anytime you or your students encounter any problems that you cannot resolve on your own, please reach out to us. The staff in the Campus Services Center and the resident directors and resident assistants in the residence halls are here to help. So don't hesitate to let us know if you need assistance. All right, now we're glad to respond to your questions. Again, you can type them into the chat box in the bottom side of your browser or the Q&A. And it looks like Joe is posting them, and it looks like Brian, you've got the first couple questions on the list.
Sure, sounds good. I have a follow-up question here about the move-in times. Sounds like maybe some confusion on that. So the the day and time that was sent in the assignment letters to students, that is what we are encouraging for them to do, for certainly the day. And so most everyone would be on the 18th. A handful were on the 17th to help smooth out traffic on campus. But that day is your assigned day. So if you need to arrive prior to your assigned day, then there is the process for signing up for early arrival. However, the specific time slots during the day, 9 to 11, I think 11 to 1 and 1 to 3. Those are also to help spread things out throughout the day. So we strongly encourage that if you are able to please make plans to follow your assigned time slot. It not only will spread things out throughout the day on campus, but also within the building, so that we don't have, everyone moving the third floor at the same time, for example. It helps us spread out throughout the buildings to make everything just an easier flow, a nicer day for everyone. But with that said, if you've already made plans and it just absolutely will not work, you are assigned the 1 to 3, but you've got plans and you have to leave first thing in the morning. That's fine. You can adjust and come in the earlier time slot if you need to, anytime beginning at 9 a.m. But again, we strongly encourage that you please follow the assigned time, but please know that if that just is prohibitive based on your schedule, that there is flexibility with that. Question about furniture in Dodds Hall, pretty specific there. Dodds is a hall that we just are finishing this summer, finished up renovations. So we're real excited about that. And so based on that, yes, any pictures you see online, for example, on the Pinterest, will certainly be old and out of date because no one has lived in Dodds since it's been renovated. So anyone here who's assigned there, or their students are, you'll be the first to live there. So that's very exciting. If you were to look at pictures maybe of rooms like Stanton, you get a real good idea of what to expect in Dodds. Stanton was the hall we renovated just prior to Dodds. Question about, sounds like maybe someone's student who is unavailable to get to a computer or to the internet and can't find their assignment. That there is not a way for parents to log in and see that information at this time. The student would need to either forward that email or log in. So hopefully, when that student is back at a computer, they'll be able to log in and see that. If you are FERPA approved, and FERPA is the educational information protection that we follow, if you did fill out that form and you are approved for that and want to contact our office to ask what your student's housing assignment is, we can provide that to you as long as you have that FERPA approval on file.
All right, I've got the next few questions here. There's some follow-up to the schedule on the day of move-in. Someone asked, can we stay to organize the room and help them get settled in beyond 3 p.m.? The answer is yes, absolutely. Generally around 5 p.m. corridors are kind of getting together. People are coalescing together. People are finding each other and they're going over to eat with each other. And I think that's a good opportunity for students to start to get to know each other. And you might feel like, oh, let's do one last dinner together. But I encourage you to kind of set them off with the people that they've been meeting and seeing moving in, and people are kind of milling around the hall at that time. So yes, by 5:30, you should head out. The social events on the 7th. So there are social events on the 17th for the students in Havikhurst, Emerson, and Hahn. And again, if your student doesn't arrive till the 18th, they're not going to be missing out. There's just some things that we arrange for those halls just to make sure that people have something to do and are busy. But they are on both the 17th, 18th, and honestly, they continue through. There's events planned by my colleagues across campus every night of the weekend through Sunday night. So yes, if you're arriving for Hahn, Havikhurst, or Emerson, leaving by 5 p.m. is also suggested because the students in that building will be doing the same thing. A parent asked, do we need to label boxes and bags with the student's name and room number if volunteers are helping to unload? I don't know. Typically, that's not the practice. It's not a requirement. We don't load. I mean, typically what's going to happen is they're going to walk up with a bin and they're going to say, what room are you going to? And they're going to roll it up to that room and put it either at the door if you're not there yet, or put it in the room. So, and that system has worked well for us without formalizing every item being labeled and as if it's going to a shipper. So it's not fully necessary. I don't think it would hurt, just so there's no misunderstandings. Every now and then a bag gets to the wrong room and we're running around looking for it, and we find it every year. We find it, but it's not a requirement for everybody to label everything. There's another question. How do we identify the helpers? They will be, they're not wearing a specific, like we don't give all the helpers a specific t-shirt or label or anything. So generally they're around the front door of the building where physical facility. Now all the physical facility staff will have their red physical facility shirts on, but they will, and it'll just be obvious. The student helpers will kind of descend on the cars as they pull up. So it's obvious who's helping move stuff in. And if there aren't carts available at that time, the students are just kind of grabbing the items that you're unloading from the car and carrying them into the building. I don't know at this point. Someone asked about move-in on the 17th. If we're going to have assistance, we certainly will have some physical facilities staff there. I don't know yet if we will have students helping there, but so there'll be some assistance on the 17th, but I don't know the extent of the student assistance on that day. Another question, is there a limit to how many people can be in the room for move-in? At this point, there is not. When we were in the middle of the COVID pandemic, we did limit that, but at this point, there is no limit. And well, you'll get a sense if you haven't visited one of our rooms yet, or any typical college room. You'll get a sense that this is a small space, so you don't want the whole mishpucha, the whole family in the room, while there's unloading going on. And certainly, if two families are there at the same time, it'll get tight. So I would just use your judgment on who can be in the room at the time. There's a question about students who are arriving early for Miami bound programs or for any other reason, if there will be meetings and corridor dinners the day they arrive. And the answer is not organized through residence life. So if they're arriving for a program, say on Monday or Tuesday that week, their kind of community building will be through their program. They'll check into the building, they'll get set up in their room, and then they'll meet up with their program to do the initial, programming or community building, but those meetings won't occur on those nights. Everyone will have their corridor meeting and their all hall meeting on Thursday, the 18th. Is there an agenda for the student meetings over the weekend? So there are all sorts of things planned for Welcome Weekend. Some are required, and everybody, all 40, however many 100 students will be attending, like at Yeager Stadium or at in our convocation center in Millett Hall. So a couple of them are everyone goes, and then some of them are optional and they're on the list. Students used an app this summer for orientation, so they could see their orientation schedule. The Welcome Weekend schedule will be on that same app, so they should all already have it on their phones right now. And the final schedule is probably not posted yet. We're still finalizing and tweaking, but I can assure you there'll be social events every night for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then there are some optional things during the day. There's academic meetings on Friday that they'll be attending with their academic division, and in some cases with their departments. So all of that is going to be posted on the app that they use during orientation. Will there be meetings? Let me see what else. My son is participating in U-Lead. It states the move-in is August 15th. When should we arrive to move in to Collins Hall? For all of the pre-semester programs, the information on when you should arrive should be in the materials from that pre-semester program. So for you, lead, I don't know if they need you here by noon or by 3 or by 5. To be honest, I don't know. I would use the communication you're getting from the individual programs across campus. I got another question here. What is the fee if the walls are damaged? Well, the answer is it depends. Is it one paint chip that got pulled off by a command strip? We're likely going to charge about $15 for that so that the painting company can come in and sand it and plaster it and repaint it. If it's the whole room needs to be repainted, it could cost, and that's, like if there's more than 5 or 10, or if there's one of those light strips that goes all the way around the perimeter of the ceiling, it could be as much as $220 to repaint a room. And it all kind of depends on the extent of the damage that occurs. Someone asked if I could share the URL again. Let me back up one page. And where is that URL? FY Move-In is the URL, and that is in the process of being updated as we speak. That'll be a good resource with the maps once they are posted for move-in.
Okay,
Brian,
I'll grab a couple here.
Yep.
Question about floor plans. If a copy of the floor plan for your students' corridor is something you're interested in seeing, there's not a whole lot on them other than, I guess, if you wanted to see where the bathroom was, we can certainly provide those. Now, room dimensions, so the length, width, number of windows, square footage, that is all provided on your students' room information on their online housing accounts. They can get all of that there. But if seeing the kind of the whole floor layout, there's no furniture on it, but it's the floor layout. If you're interested in that, just send us an email. We are getting a number of requests, so it may take a day or two to get those sent back to you. But if you would like that, you can email us at campusservicescenter@miamioh.edu. You can find our contact information on our website. They had been on the screen earlier. It's just miamioh.edu/housing. You can also search on the Miami website for housing, and you'll get that. Our contact information, our email address is there. Send us a quick email. Let us know which floor you'd like to see. If it's second floor of Han, let us know and we'll send you the image for that. All right, got a number of questions about beds and bunking beds and not bunking beds. And it really, that question really does, it varies greatly, certainly by hall and even within a hall, just based on the differences in layouts. With as many rooms as we have, there's a lot of differences. The majority of our furniture is what we call low loft style furniture, which is they're about half the height that you might think of as a normal bunk bed, and they have just enough room underneath them to fit the dresser and other furniture underneath it. So you can slide it right under, and yet the beds are not very high. So it's a really nice feature. Most of our rooms have those. And those can also be adjusted and be bunked if you'd prefer to do that. There are some rooms, maybe some triples, that really work better if there's at least one bed bunked. And some students choose all different setups. So when you get to the room, if it's not quite set up the way you'd like, and you want to change that, that's something that staff will be able to help assist with. The exact type of furniture that's within each hall is on our website. Again, that's miamioh.edu/housing. And there's a residence hall section. Within that, there's a section for each quad on campus and then each building. And it would describe what type of furniture would be in those rooms. So that will be a helpful resource there as well. But again, it does vary really across campus. Let's see here. And also just a reminder, be sure to check out the Pinterest page. The Miami University parents page has links there to see photos of rooms in the building. May not be able to find the exact room, but definitely you'll be able to see examples of what the rooms look like in those buildings. Again, if you happen to be in Dodge, probably a good place to start would be looking up pictures of Stanton. That's going to be pretty close of an example for you.
Going back to adhesives for decorative items, basically you shouldn't use any adhesives. Tapes, duct tape, any of the 3M products should not be used. Now, someone has specifically asked, can we use 3M products on the doors or the desks? Which, you know, generally won't pull, obviously, paint off the doors or desks. And I guess the answer is yes, that's fine. But if the you know, the command strip or the command hook is left stuck to the desk or the door, then they'll get charged for the removal of that. So that's why we generally say no. A lot of them are, you know, like if they just take them off properly, they work fine and they don't do damage. It's just so many people don't know how to remove them, and they're being removed at a time when everyone's ready to go home and not thinking about charges. And I mean, to us, it's not like about making money or you know, charging people more. It's really about our ability to turn over the buildings and get the buildings ready for conference services in the summer and then for move-in in August the next year. So that's why we have these restrictions on what you can hang. Again, the S hooks are available. We don't provide them. Some might still be in the room because they never got taken down, and those are free for you to use, but you can go to any hardware store, and if you're in town, our Ace Hardware and our Walmart has it. Now, of course, all these businesses are strongly promoting their 3M products as well, but you should buy these, what we call S hooks, or molding hooks is another way you might find them if you're shopping for them online. They'll come up that way. There's a question here about shipping items to campus prior to move-in. You may do that. There's a time, I think, set for not doing that before August. Let me check real quick. I should have looked this up before I took this question. Here we go. Move-in day. Shipping. Yes, you can ship. You should ship packages so they don't arrive before August 9th. You should ship them to the student's name, care of Miami University, their room number and residence hall. So it's all the residence hall address that you see posted on the campus services website. But all of those packages will go to our university mail center in Shriver Center. And the mail center will email the student and let them know that it's arrived, and they should go to the mail center to claim their packages. So all of that is done through our package center in Shriver Center.
All right, a question about meal plans. So the meal plans, the meal swipes at the Commons buffet locations, those do begin on August 17th is when those begin. So anytime starting on the 17th, you'll be able to use the meal swipes. The declining balance dining dollars that are part of your meal plan, your student's meal plan, those will typically be loading in here in early August. We load those a little earlier in case there's any early arrivals, or just also we were working to get those accounts all processed. So those dining dollars will begin to show up in their account early August, but the Commons meal swipes, the buffet swipes, those begin on August 17th. All right, it looks like a question about Dodds. We must have a Dodds. We've got some Dodds people here. That's great. What was included in the renovation is the question, and this is going to be similar to all the other renovations we've done. It's a complete building renovation. This was a building that didn't even have central air conditioning in it before. So pretty much a complete, all of the interior finishes, mechanical systems, electrical, heating and air conditioning, all of the things you can imagine. Really, these renovations, if anyone's seen any of them, are coming out really, really nice, and it really like new. So it's going to be a like new building. You really enjoy it there. So it's great to hear you there. Got a question about chances of changing dorms before the semester begins. Again, if there's a significant issue such as a disability accommodation or other issues, we may be able to make some adjustments. Certainly in those cases, we'll work to make adjustments as we can, working together with the Miller Center. Aside from that, we typically are trying to hold room changes until after the semester begins, after the first 2 weeks and things have settled, give folks a chance to kind of get settled in. And then if there's a change, that's when those would begin work through their hall director. Let's see here. Question about, are the roommates assigned the same day and time? Yes. So we do assign the move-in times, and days are based on the room. So you and your student and their roommate will be assigned the same time, unless of course they'd requested early arrival.
There's a question here about the student ID. Does that get them into exterior access to their residence hall and to their room? And the answer is yes. There are no keys issued on our campus. So all of that is through the student's ID card. And the benefit of that, there's many benefits, but one is we don't have to mess with keys or lost keys or rekeying doors when they lose keys or any problems like that. If a student does misplace their ID, they can go online and deactivate it. So if someone happens to pick it up, that person can't get into their room or get into their building or use their vending dollars or their dining dollars. And then if they happen to find their ID, they can go back online and turn it on. They don't have to go to a central place like at most campuses and get a new key or reactivate their ID. It's all done electronically. So all of that is done through the student's ID, which they received at orientation.
And then one other thing I'll add to that, new for this year, is we are launching what we're calling our digital ID, which is the ability that students can actually add their ID card to their phone. So I've got an iPhone, so I'm more familiar with that language. So you can add it to your wallet, basically. And so there's an app called Get Mobile, our ID card website, which can all be linked through, again, through the housing website. You can get to the ID card section, has information about downloading that app. This is brand new for the digital ID, is brand new for this fall. So there's some locations that may not quite be up and running just yet, a few buildings, but they're working hard to get, there's been some issues with some readers getting in, but generally it's going to be available in the dining locations as well. So that'll be a neat thing. In addition to the card, they can, we're beginning to pilot that. So that's an option as well. Question about the dining halls being open on August 14th. Some will be, certainly. As always, I think the best resource is to check out the dining website. That's where they always keep the most up-to-date hours of operation, nutritional information, all that good detail that is very helpful. I check it out regularly. And that is simply miamioh.edu/dining, or you could always search the Miami page for dining. And from there, you'll find a link for the hours of operation, and they'll show you by day, basically, what is open. So you can be sure to check that out. Hopefully you're able to come check it out before, if you're able to.
We've got a question here about COVID precautions. Again, you are not required to wear a mask while on campus and during move-in, but it is strongly recommended. And that if there is a change to that, then that will be posted on our COVID website and our move-in website, and there's likely to be more communication about that. But at this point, it's not required. Someone asks if carts will be available. There are carts available, but we don't have a cart for everybody. So sometimes during the peak times, there's not a cart available when you move in. So if you have a small cart or a little, little portable hand truck, there's nothing, I think it can be helpful to bring that, but it's not required. Everyone gets moved in one way or the other. When the students are there helping move in, they're just taking boxes and bags up to the room, carrying them in, and then whatever carts are available are being used. We have a parent whose student is doing their orientation on the 17th and 18th, and they'll be moving in early on the 16th. And the question is, will they be involved in the residence hall meetings, or will they miss it due to orientation? The answer is yes, they will be involved. Those first corridor meetings and all hall meetings are the evening of Thursday, the 18th, and all of the August orientation students will be involved in that. We want them to be meeting everybody and getting involved and getting all the information just like everybody else. So it's specifically designed that they'll be done with orientation by the time those meetings begin.
All right, let's see here. Are there elevators in the halls? The majority of the buildings, yes, do have passenger elevators that are available for the public use. There are a handful of buildings that do not. McKee and Thompson are two that come to mind. There are a handful of buildings that do not have elevators for use, but most of the halls do have those.
When my student moves in, is there a check-in required first? Yes, they should go in, and they'll see a desk in the front lobby, and they go in and identify themselves, meet the staff who are there. They'll check them in, give them some basic information about the move-in process, and then send them on their way to check in.
Got a question about getting ID cards. For students who do not already have their ID card, so if your student doesn't have their card yet, they'll want to stop into the Campus Services Center, and their housing assignment email should have included a bit of information on this as well, with our address and where to find us. But they'll want to stop by our office and get a card. We'll get it printed for them. Many students receive them at orientation during the summer, but if your student either didn't go to summer orientation or wasn't able to get a card there, just stop by our office and we'll do that. You'll want to make that your first stop because you won't be able to get in to the building without that card. So be sure to stop here and pick that up. Again, we are located in Nellie Craig Walker Hall. But again, that same housing website, you can find our contact information and where to find us. One more question about Dodds Hall here. And yes, the question is, will there no longer be window air conditioners? And that's correct, because it's been fully renovated. With our renovations. We have building air conditioning, HVAC, all brand new, everything. So there definitely will not be window air conditioners. Those are a thing of the past at Dodds. Let's see here.
You want me to answer this, or you got this? About Morris Hall.
Oh, Morris, sure, I can answer that. Just a question about Morris Hall and just want to share that we're doing some continuous improvements there. Done some new carpet in the hallways. So we haven't done a major renovation at Morris, but we are doing some improvements there. As well as Morris, Emerson, and Tappan, all three. We've been working this summer to work on some improved fresh air into the corridors and the bathrooms to help just continue to increase the airflow. You know, obviously these are some of our larger buildings and we have a lot of students there. So sometimes that can start to pile up, you can imagine. So we're always looking to make those as good of an experience as we can. So we've worked to install what are called dedicated outside air supply units that are actually bringing more airflow through the corridors and the bathrooms. The student rooms have building air conditioning as well. So just working to improve that there. So I believe that Morris Hall is the last of the three to be finished up. And so we're looking forward to that as well. And then, you know, kind of along with that, I see here in the question just about, this is true for all of the halls, always encouraging that, you know, not to leave, and this is easy to do, but encouraging students not to leave piles of wet clothes and towels and things that just can't dry. So making sure to hang things up to dry, all the things that I tell my kids at my house to do. I had my car smelled like a wet towel and I couldn't figure out why. And it was because they left the wet towel in the back seat. So definitely encouraging that as well. It helps that. And always this is just another chance to remind that, in all the rooms that have the central air. It's not really central air. It's not central building, but it's the HVAC system. There's a fan coil unit that's got a vent that takes in air and moves air through. And you want to be sure not to block that because sometimes we see that those get blocked in rooms. Either things piled up in front of them or maybe furniture pushed in front of them. Definitely want to leave space for that so that it can get the fresh air and keep things moving. And again, that's true through all the halls that have the built-in non-window air conditioning. So definitely want to remind on that. And Rob, I think back to you.
Yeah, we've got a few questions here. One, do we need to leave the room once dinner or the mandatory meetings begin? And I think if you're suggesting that the parents would stay in the room while the student goes to dinner and goes to the meetings, I would say that's not what we want to happen. That, whereas during the move-in process, parents and families can be in the room without the student, but once they're moved in and once they're going off to dinner and going to meetings for that night, the parents and families should leave and should not be in the rooms at that point. At that point, we would consider you a guest that needs to be escorted by the student. So yeah, y'all should head out before they go to dinner and meetings. There's a question about the assignments of floors, if they're co-ed, and if yes, are there sets of bathrooms? And so the question was actually answered in the question. The answer is yes, there are floors that are co-ed. Most are corridors. The entire corridor is single sex. But in some cases, there are men and women assigned to the same corridor, and that is based on the availability of multiple sets of bathrooms. One of the things that we've been able to do with our campus renovation of all of the residence halls is eliminate the large group bathrooms. You might have 6 stalls, 6 showers, 6 sinks for an entire floor, in which case that floor had to be entirely single sex. And instead, now we have multiple smaller bathrooms, a 333, a 222, and we've added a lot of 111s, single-use bathrooms. And that has given us the ability to have more flexibility on assignments. It has given us more flexibility on the number of men and women that are in that living learning community. And it also gives us flexibility on gender neutral and other reasons that people prefer and need single use bathrooms. Now, in the case that it is a floor with both men and women, it won't go men, women, men, women, men, women. It will be a cluster of women and a cluster of men, and where that line is might shift based on the numbers. So whereas it's possible that male students might be next door neighbors with female students, it is obviously not common. It's possible, it's just not common. How do you know if the floor is co-ed? I think you just got to walk and look and see who's in the rooms. Look at the door tags and look at people. There's nothing that indicates whether a floor is co-ed or single sex.
And I would just add, to that there is an increasing number of those. So it used to be very rare based on the bathrooms, but as we've done the renovations and really the corridors opened up many more bathrooms, and just working on how the living learning communities lay out and where people can go, there is an increased number, certainly, in those co-ed floors.
Sometimes during orientation, when that question gets asked, it's asked and the parent is, concerned. And I can tell you from my experience over these 27 years that the change to this has been almost entirely positive, that it creates a more positive environment on the floors. I rarely hear about any problems because there's men living 5 doors down or not. Our only single sex buildings on campus are the the sorority buildings for second-year students. If they choose to join a sorority, there are single-sex buildings for those groups of sorority women. We got a question here about do the beds fit a headboard? If the question is, does the bed have those little holes in the brackets where you can screw a headboard in? The answer is no. But do people bring like a kind of makeshift headboard to lean between the bed and the wall? Yes. It's not common. It's obviously not required. It can make the room feel a little bit homier, but I'll tell you this, at the end of the year, I see a lot of those headed to the trash, into the dumpster. And I think that's unfortunate. And it says to me, this was nice, but not necessary to bring a headboard for decorating the room. I got a question here. If my child has a triple, well, this is just about the triple. So let me address the triples. The Campus Services Center designates rooms as triples based on the square footage in the room. So there's a designation that allows us to do this. And so you're concerned about, well, is it just going to be super crowded in there? When you walk into some of these triples, you go, oh, I can see why this is a triple. So in almost all cases, I mean, I can think through, we've got, a couple buildings that have more triples than not, and I can think through these rooms and think, yeah, these are big spaces. They're not required to bunk the beds. Some will choose to bunk the beds, the same with doubles. They'll choose to bunk it so that they can have more floor space. But I've seen us, most of the setups with triples, everyone's got their beds on the floor. Their furniture is under their bed like everybody else. They have their desk, they have their dresser, and they have either a closet or a wardrobe in the room. So I would not be concerned if your student was assigned to a triple. There are not a lot of them on campus, but if your student was assigned to a triple, it's because that's a bigger room. And we built it that way because just the makeup of the building. We didn't, we don't specifically seek to have triples. It's just this ended up being a bigger space, and we can fit the furniture. And there's 3 data jacks in that room. Everyone gets their own dedicated data jack for plugging their computer in if they want the fastest internet. How do you know if a room has an armoire or a closet? The best way is to look at the Pinterest page and to see that room on there. But otherwise, I don't have a one-to-one inventory of which has which.
Yeah, and they do even within buildings. In some cases, some rooms, just based on the layout, may have one or the other, even within the same building. So I think flexibility and just knowledge that your student will have closet space, whether that is a movable armoire wardrobe or a built-in closet, they will have closet space. I think is kind of a good perspective to have. And again, the less to bring immediately sometimes is good. So, thinking about how you might want to organize a closet. In some cases, you might want to wait till you move in, see what kind of space you get, and then you could always run out to Walmart or the local hardware stores or other places in town if you wanted to buy some different things based on the actual layout that their space may have.
There's some questions here about the layout of the room and furnishing of the specific rooms. And again, I'll refer you to Pinterest. And if you search for Miami University Parents and Family Programs, there's a listing of all the residence halls. And in some cases, students have posted their own pictures of how they've decorated the room. But in most cases, our staff has posted rooms of the room empty. And if it doesn't have your specific room, then just look at an adjacent room. When we did this a couple years ago, we tried to take a picture of every room, but if at the time we were taking them, some of the rooms were being repaired, or that was occupied by somebody, so we couldn't get in to take a picture of that room. If you look at a neighboring room, it's going to give you the same sense of what furniture is in there, and if there's closets or armoires, and you can generally find it there. Let me make one other comment. You're going to look at some of these pictures in Pinterest, and you're going to see some of the most fantastic rooms ever designed. They should be in magazines. These students are YouTubers and they're blah. I mean, the whole thing. And I want to make sure that that doesn't create a culture where students feel like, oh, my room has to be set up like that. Or if my room isn't set up like that, I'm going to be the odd person out. Most of the rooms are just set up basic. They are, they bring some pictures from home. They bring their bedspread. They bring, if they want a throw pillow, they bring that. Not all the rooms are Better Homes and Gardens or, set up like for one of these decorating shows on TV. So I want to make sure that you're not feeling pressure like, oh my goodness, we've got to go buy matching sets and this and that and the lettering on the wall and the whole thing, just because you see you see pictures of that on Pinterest. All right, we have to wrap up. There's a couple of quick things here. We don't have shuttles running on move-in day, predominantly because we don't need to, because your parking is going to be near your quad. The Miami bus system will be working, but they might just have a skeleton schedule for the move-in days. And that's through the Butler County Regional Transit Authority, BCRTA, but we don't have, nor do we need shuttles running that day. If your student wants to see how many swipes they have remaining, they can go to any dining location and go to the front counter there, and they can report to them their swipes. All right, we've hit the hour mark, and we are glad to keep answering questions, or if you want to email either of our offices, our email addresses are posted prominently on our websites, and we're glad to take more questions there. Brian, there's one or two more here. Did you want to hit those before we wrapped up?
I think you already answered the meal swipes. In addition to every time you use a meal swipe, it will tell you the balance, how many you've left. Students can also log into a website called Webcard Center and should be able to see their balance there, as well as their dining dollar balance. And there's links to that also, because we're at the Campus Services Center, we do housing, meal plans, and ID cards, and a few other services as well. But if you go to the housing website, you'll easily see links to all of these different things. And so within the ID card section of that, there'll be a link of how to log into your online ID card account, which is called Webcard Center. And that's where they can see details like that as well. Otherwise, I think we probably covered all these things. There's a question about move-in times and days. And yes, those were provided in the housing assignment email as well. So
I got a couple of last ones here. Activities that are occurring on the 19th. Yes, their academic division meetings will occur on the morning and early afternoon of the 19th. I don't have a final schedule for that, but they should plan on going to their academic division on that Friday, the 19th. Another question, do we need to buy dry erase boards for the outside of the students' residence hall room? The answer is no. They all have that already. If they want to bring a dry erase pen, they should. We don't provide those. And not everybody uses them, but the boards are already there, so they don't need to bring one. And then there's one question here about general safety in the residence halls, where we benefit from this card access system to limit who can enter the halls and to track who has entered the halls. And we can limit which doors people use at different times of the day. Across campus, there are blue lights strategically posted. So if someone feels unsafe, they can go, they push the button, and they immediately have MUPD dispatch on the line. Our police department on campus is minutes away if anyone ever needs them. Our Butler County Regional Transit Authority, BCRTA, offers late night transportation service from location to location, and students will get information when they check in on how to access that, and that's available. Obviously, if it's a peak time of night, the person's not going to pick you up in 3 minutes like an Uber, but there are that, you know, they get to you when you call and request a drive. There are also several apps that students will be recommended they load on their phones that help with safety, that has resources, and that has all sorts of things. And that's going to be in their welcome packet when they get to campus. It'll have a sheet that lists the 5 or 6 apps that they should put on their phones to help give them resources for safety and security on campus. All right.
Okay.
Brian.
Yeah. Well,
I think we've hit them all.
I think so.
Well,
thanks everybody thanks for being here and listening to this important information.
Yep. We want to thank Joe Hawkins for moderating and for helping set this up. And if you have more questions, you know how to get a hold of us through email. And this webinar is going to be posted. So if you are talking to other parents and you recommend they listen to it, it's going to be posted through the parents' website.